Do-do-do. All right, welcome everyone. Because we've got a special guest here, as you may see from Kai's background, he's into a bit of surfing, so I thought I'd better come up with a surf-related joke. So, Kai, what do surfing and oil have in common?
Surfing and oil. I do not know.
They're both measured by the barrel.
That's a good one. You got a genuine laugh out of me. So my belly was moving. So
That's wonderful.
You got the genuine laugh.
What is a barrel?
my belly was
Let me
moving.
mute everyone.
So the barrel is like the inside part of the wave. When you're really good, like you see those famous pictures of like surfers crouched inside the wave. So that's the barrel.
Okay. Well, wonderful.
But
we're learning things already.
You have to live somewhere with a little bit better surf than where I live to have steady barrels, and you need to be much more skilled than me to be able to exit. Entering the barrel isn't as hard. Exiting it is quite hard.
That sounds terrifying to me. But welcome everyone to this special class. We have Khe Hy. He is one of my mentors, and I'm so delighted to get to share him this week for Mentorship Week here in Masterful Manifestors. We've been sharing our mentors today. We've been sharing little videos from some of our celebrity mentors in the group. So very exciting. I feel like Khe is a celebrity. He is the Oprah for Millennials, according to CNN. I love that. And he is here to tell us a little bit about this awesome framework. I actually had the pleasure of going through a 10K work boot camp with him. I think it was back in September. And I got so much value from it. So I'm so excited to get to share this with all of you. Thank you so much, Khe, for being here.
It is my pleasure, and I've really appreciated collaborating with you through our work with our shared friend Billy, and through some of my courses and trainings, and now to be on your side of the fence is an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. Go ahead and take it away, and feel free to ask questions in the chat. Khe is welcome to answer productivity questions or the existential. He can handle it all.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. And it is a great pleasure. And I'm totally digging Rose's Christmas tree, the festive mood we have here, although I will have to share my screen and then I won't be able to see it anymore. But I figured, so today I want to tell you just a little teeny bit about myself. I want to talk through this really neat framework that I've built over the years. But most importantly, make it super interactive. We've got a small group. We're all friends. We're all scattered around the world. And so I really want to use this opportunity to hear your answers to some of these questions, to help diagnose any questions, problems or questions you may have, and to probe more deeply. So I do have a bunch of slides, but they all have natural resting points in them. We have a small enough group that you can just, I don't know, Marion, how you typically do questions, but if so, you can barge in and then ask the question, or you could put it in the chat and then Marion can ask it, but whatever works, but please don't be shy. And so with that, I will share my screen and let's get this party started. All right, so here we go. All right. So I hope that you leave this presentation with the ability to own your time and your peace of mind, because that's what it's ultimately about. And so I'm going to walk you through this 10K work framework blueprint, and I'll start with a little story. The story is one about a mighty lion. Roar. And so this lion is hungry and contemplating its food options. One option is a squirrely little field mouse, and the other is a svelte, fast antelope. And so as the lion is pondering what he or she is going to eat, let's look at the tail of the tape. So the squirrely field mouse weighs in at a measly 30 calories, quite easy to hunt down, but the amount of effort that it takes to hunt this field mouse would exceed the amount of effort expended by the lion. Now, the svelte antelope, 250,000 calories, achievable, but it's gonna take some work. But if the lion is able to snag the antelope, it could feed the entire pride. And so as the lion ponders these two options, one is a path to oblivion, and the other is the ability to survive and thrive. So today we're going to take a trip together. We're going to go from the field mouse to the antelope. And in the world of knowledge work and entrepreneurship, we're going to go from $10 work to $10,000 work. I hope you're ready. But first, just a brief introduction on myself. Like I said, my name is Khe Hy. I'm streaming from LA, California, Manhattan Beach. And I'm an accidental entrepreneur and the creator of RadReads.co. I encourage you all to go sign up, check out the blog. I've been writing a weekly email for over 6 years now. I'm a recovering Wall Street investor. So if you really want to know though what RadReads is all about, I present our informal tagline, which is one of Marion's favorites. Come for the productivity, stay for the existential. I truly believe that productivity, questions like getting more time, getting more done, achieving more, are just the Trojan horse into much, much bigger questions about our lives. So we're going to start off with an exercise. This exercise, Marion's got a workbook that she's going to share. You can duplicate that workbook into your workspace. I'm going to set 2-minute timers for you, and then we're gonna manage the clock in real time. But we'll come back and talk about it. So you all are entrepreneurs from what I've been told, and so the first question is, if you could only spend 2 hours a week on your business, let's say you got into a bad crash or a global pandemic hit and you have kids at home, how would you spend it? So I'm going to set my clock, set a 2-minute timer. And I want you to just, you can use the workbook, use your notebook, but just think about this. You know, you got 2 hours a week. How would you spend it? And I believe some of you are coaches. So if you are a coach, let's say your coaching is covered, right? You don't have to do the coaching yourself. Need to get some music. I'm gonna go get some music. Lo-fi beats. All right, 40 seconds. All right, 20 seconds. We're going to start wrapping. And again, this is just to get the juices going. But if anyone has, stop the music. If anyone came up with any good stuff, drop it in the chat. Or if you want to If you want to just barge in on your mic, I'd love to hear your answers.
I love
few
to
of you.
barge in on the mic. That's my favorite thing.
Yes.
For giving me
I want to see your Christmas tree, Rose. So that works perfect.
Yeah, so I just like kind of quickly went content and engagement, right? Like sharing stories and hope and love, and then also like engaging with my people in the PMs and emails in any way that I can.
Cool. So engagement and sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Anyone else want to throw in?
I'd love to jump in. Oh.
Yes, go ahead, Melanie.
So I cheated and was reading a little bit on your blog earlier, and as soon as I read this 2 hour, I love the concept, and it just instantly hit me. Just writing, storytelling, either speeches, character development, just writing, just absolutely jumped out to me when I saw that 2 hours a week. I was like, it's like such finite, and it was like,
Yeah. I love it.
Hit home hard.
I love it. I'll do one more, and but again, we're going to wrap this all together. Anyone else have one that they want to share?
Mine is the same as Melanie's, writing an engaging newsletter to connect with our community.
Good. Love that. For me, so as someone who's been a long-time writer, I actually put developing frameworks. I think for me, I've written so much for so many years that if I really think about the value that I can add to others, is to like take this pool of ideas and make it into something that people can like really attach to. But again, that's where I am in my journey as a creator, and you'll see some of the output of that with this framework, which was 6 years or a lifetime in the making. All right, cool. So you got your worksheets, we're warmed up, let's keep going. So what is the $10,000 framework? It is a simple 2x2 matrix. I love 2x2 matrices. They're very easy to understand, but they offer enough dimensions to navigate through. And so on one axis, on the x-axis, you have low skill and high skill. And so as you think about the work in your businesses, think about things that are really low skill and think about things that are really high skill. And then you have low leverage and high leverage. And this concept might be a little less familiar to you. And as you move across the continuum, I guess up and then down and then up, you go from low skill, low leverage work to high skill, high leverage work. And there's a dollar value in between. Now, I don't want you to get too anchored with the dollar value. Really what this is like, there are activities that you can do that are 100 times more valuable to your business than others. So really think of it more as like the multiplier effect versus like, am I getting paid $1,000 for this or $100 for this? And so to go back to our lion, the $10 work is the field mouse, and the $10,000 work is the antelope. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background on my own story and my trajectory towards 10K work, because it really kicked in twice in my career. So here I am, a nerdy graduate, computer science, accounting, computer science and economics in 2001. Didn't know much about business, didn't know much about finance, definitely didn't know much about the internet because we were still using 28.8 modems back then. But I ended up working on Wall Street for 14 years. And at 31, I was one of the youngest managing directors at the firm, which is kind of one of the highest titles you could have in the firm. And then I quit with my midlife crisis, or maybe third of a life crisis at 33, and moved to the beach to commit to a life of surfing and being around my two young kids. And so, as I like to say, I went from the boardroom to the beach. And $10,000 work is a big catalyst in that journey. So, like I said, I think of my life my professional life in two chapters. So, what were the high skill, high leverage activities that I was able to do when I was in corporate? And those were access to unique information. So I was a little bit like a VC, where I had to go find like quirky investments. And so because of a commitment that I made to networking and building authentic, genuine relationships, I had access to information that no one else had access to. And I could say, there was a joke, which is for about 12 years, I had 3 networking meetings a day. So that is a lot. I love it. I love meeting people. I don't view it as transactional, but that was my compounding advantage, was building. To this day, I still have access to unique information in the finance world, and I'm not even in the industry for 6 years. I haven't been in the industry for 6 years. The other thing was a kick-ass loyal team. I invested every ounce of energy that I had into treating my direct reports like they were my kids. I cared for them and their greatest aspirations, their biggest insecurities, and trained them to be better than me. And to this day, in fact, just this morning, I took a mentoring call from a direct report to one of my former direct reports. So this person reached out to me as a mentoring call. When I joined the firm, he was probably like 8 years old. So he's like 22 years old now. And so he just like wanted my advice, like my old guy advice. At this point, I'm 41. So that was my first real like 10K experience. The second one is a little bit more traditional in the world of creators, building an audience. I have an insanely engaged audience of 23,000 subscribers with a 56% open rate. And I send 3 emails a week. Marion knows a little bit about these emails. And I hope you all subscribe because you'll get a taste of them.
Yeah, I think we have some of your subscribers on the call.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for reading my spam. And then the second is building a community around that audience. Again, mostly through some of the teaching that I do. And then a third one, which is actually what brought Marion and I together, is really understanding the psychology of marketing. And that was through my work with Billy. I'm a left brain thinker. I'm not a natural storyteller. I'm not a natural like emotive person. I'm going to sell you on features and tools versus emotion. And in the couple of years that I've really leaned into that, it's become something that's been a complete game changer for me. And so we're going to talk about ways in which you can scale, identify and scale up your 10K work, and know that, I've been in your shoes, and like with something like marketing, it's been 2 years, and it's one of my like most important superpowers. Again, thanks to great mentorship and teachers like Billy. So let's go back to the framework and let's talk about it in a little bit more specific terms. So if you were going to take a dividing line between like where one might be and where one wants to go, you might think of the lower half, the cheaper half of the quadrant, as efficiency versus effectiveness. You might think about it as execution. Look, we're all small business owners. We have to execute. We have to respond to those customer service emails. We have to send the notes to our coaching clients. And learning and growth. I always say, $10 work because you can do it hungover. $10,000 work, it's deep work, no distractions. That's the easiest clue, tell on what kind of work you're doing. And I've done, over my 20 years of work, I've done my share of hungover work. Let's say a good chunk of my Wall Street career. $10 work releases dopamine, and $10,000 work, you don't even know if you're doing the right thing. And then lastly, one is playing short term and one is playing the long game. And so let's look at all these categories. We want to be in the green side of it, but we also have to do, we're all small business owners, we have to do the left side of it. So we're going to try to find that right balance between the two. And so what is leverage? Archimedes said, give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. I like to refer to leverage as things move forward without my involvement. And it really hit me when the last course that I taught, There were office hours going and notes were being sent and students were loving it. And I was surfing while that was happening. And so that was like, okay, something's working. Things are happening and I don't need to be involved. And you all are small business owners. So you might empathize with that feeling that's like, nothing can happen without me. I am the engine of my business. But I'm telling you, even without hiring, you can step away from being the engine of your own business. And like I said, it's not doing things right, it's doing the right things. So there's two traditional examples of leverage. Actually just wrote about this morning. The first is what you have here. This is a statistic for the United States, and I know we've got folks from all over the world. But as of 2015, a third of US household wealth was the equity in their home. So, and so one of the reasons why that's the case is because when you buy a home, I'm going to get a little finance geeky with you. When you buy a home with 20% down, 30% down, you are employing financial leverage. What that means is you're borrowing, let's say you put 20% down, you're borrowing 80% of the home price. And every time the home goes up in value, if it goes up by 1%, your home equity goes up by 5% because the borrowing amplifies the gain that you're making. So that's traditional financial leverage. You see it all the time in why companies issue debt and leverage buyouts and all that stuff. We're not actually going to talk about financial leverage today because it requires money. It requires capital. And while we all have capital, we don't want to build businesses reliant on having capital. The other kind of leverage is labor leverage. And this is the beloved Andy Grove. If you manage folks and have not read High Output Management, he is just the man on all things like leverage, how to leverage your team, how to run efficient meetings, how to set goals, OKRs, things like that. So these are the two common examples of leverage. And we're going to talk about a third one as we're going to talk about many more as we get towards the 10K quadrant. But these are kind of the old school leverage levers. So now let's go through, I'm going to go through each quadrant of the matrix. And so $10 work, we already talked about that. Field mice, dopamine, hungover, this stuff. But we still do it, right? We do a lot of it. Every one of us has our $10 work. The one we can't, the addiction to the $10 work. For me, it's inbox zero. So let's
I would say for our group, it would be like
yes.
Tweaking the website font and colors and all of those like little design things for our brand.
Oh, I know that. WordPress, social media engagement metrics, Canva, that kind of stuff. So I want you, we're going to do 1 minute for this one, but I want you to go through, just do like a short list of your favorite dopamine hits. Set a 1 minute timer. I'll put my beats back.
Judging Millennials.
25 seconds. All right, we're slowly going to wrap this. Now, I am going to ask you what yours are, but first, I want to go to my next slide, which is I want you to notice the resistance when you're doing your work. And the resistance, that's a Stephen Pressfield concept from The War on Art. But oftentimes when we drift towards $10 work, there's actually a reason behind it. And in your workbooks, I asked that follow-up question, like, when are you most likely to do that $10 work? And so I want you, if anyone wants to volunteer, their $10 dopamine hit, but see if it ties to any of these different markers of these $10 catalysts.
Yeah, 1,000%. I can get stuck in ClickFunnels. I have a website as well. So there's both. And then I just have like another funnel and another funnel. And what if this and what if that? And what if somebody wants to, buy this and it should go like whatever. Like it's totally ridiculous. And yet fun. And it's always when I really have other things on my list to do. And like, I'm either afraid to do it or don't really know how to do it or feel like it's not really going to work anyway, or it's not good enough or whatever that drama is.
Oh man, Rose, for me, it's like A/B testing forms. and it hit me hard because I'll A/B test, to get a 4% to a 5%, which is like, I don't know, like 10, 15 subscribers or something. But I'm like, what's the effing point? Like that doesn't move the needle at all. I think I would suspect that none of us are in the business where A/B testing moves the needle in our businesses. When A/B testing moves the needles, you're like performance marketing, master class, buying advertisements up the wazoo, like spending like hundreds of $1,000s on ads. That's the only time A/B testing works. Yet I still do it all the time. For me, it is the first one. Like I'm confused. I don't know what I should be doing. Thanks, Rose.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to volunteer a dopamine and a resistor?
I'll jump in again. Yeah, social's big for me. Getting that dopamine hit, and it's normally when I'm really, really feeling that fear of failing. So it's like gives you that quick, you're good. Yeah.
You got this. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would just invite you, just going forward, when you notice that pull towards a $10 work, ask yourself these questions and, figure out what your resistor is. But it's really important. Marion's heard me say, do it with curiosity and compassion, and say like, oh, how interesting it is that I would rather A/B test a form than work on the syllabus of my masterclass. I wonder why. And then just kind of let that sit. And then you'll start to like break down those patterns. And it's okay. Like we're going to talk about it. It's okay. You need to do $10 work. But you need to know when you're doing it for the right reason. So we're going to come back to that concept. So next we have $100 work, which is what I call leveraging the wrong things. So if you think about the quadrant, it's high leverage, but low skill. And this is the land of like, I spend a lot of time in productivity land with, apps and note-taking apps and Roam and Notion and all that. And look, I teach a course on Notion. And so I always use this quote, Jeff Bezos doesn't use productivity apps. And the reason why is because he has way bigger things that move the needle. And so if you are the Jeff Bezos of your company, sure, you might need a productivity app to stay on top of things, but you need to apply that same lens of scrutiny that you would if for the $10 work. Because again, this work is very seductive, because here you're like, okay, this is important, right? There's leverage in this. But again, you step back, you're like, okay, if I really have the sleekest Notion set up, will I get new customers? Will I be able to raise my rates? Will my writing be better? Will my audience engagement be better? So you have to ask yourself these questions. But again, I will also say there's a lot of value to doing this work well, especially as small business owners. I was told by a little birdie that that there might not be a lot of Zapier and automations in this group. Would it be helpful for me to spend a few minutes on that? Guide me on something. When I say Zapier, do you know what I'm talking about? Do you even know what I'm talking about? Okay. All right. So I'm not speaking a foreign language. But I guess, let me turn it back. Have any of you found Zapier to be an effective tool in your business? So Rose is giving me.
Yeah, they connect things, which are good. Those are good to be connected, so you don't have to think about it.
Rachel is giving me this reeks of $100 work head shake. What's your experience with Zapier?
We're new to it. We're in the midst of a product launch, so we're still just trying to figure it out. But we're starting to work with it. So yeah, I'm interested in learning more if you have something to teach me. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Okay.
The one thing I will say, so Zapier, that's its own can of worms. And I think Zapier hit me as $100 work for a long, long time. Because I was like, okay, I could start a message on Slack and add it to my to-do list. Like, who the fuck cares? Sorry. But then I had a breakthrough on Zapier. And so maybe you can use this as launching points for you. The breakthrough that I had at Zapier was having one central place of record, right? And for me, that was Airtable. And so what happened is that all these different apps were gathering information about customers, basically. And I'm not in a position to need a real CRM yet, but I'm getting close. So I had all this survey information from Typeform, tag information from ConvertKit, purchase information from Teachable and Stripe for coaching. There's probably some other ones that I missed as well. And so the thing that helped was Airtable became my repository, almost like the hub. And then all those apps became spokes into that hub. So for example, Marion was a student in the course. So when she signed up for Teachable, it went into Airtable along with the purchase price. So I could start aggregating how much purchase dollars, her customer lifetime value. Then at the end of the course, she did an offboarding survey. That survey then goes into Airtable, looks her up by name, and puts her survey data in the same record. And so all these sources of data were now living in one central place. And I think that's definitely one of the missing links that I've seen, because I think what's happening is a lot of people are just doing spoke to spoke, right? Like Typeform to ConvertKit. But then ConvertKit's not your main repository for data either. So you're just kind of half baked on every part of the spoke. So if you bring everything into the hub, I think Airtable, until Notion does integrations, Airtable, and even when it does, Airtable might still be the ultimate hub. Consider Airtable. If Airtable is a little bit too advanced for you, you might be able to hack it together using Google Sheets, right? You might just need columns of data for each customer. And I think this is definitely an advanced Airtable, Zapier skill, but every time someone puts in an email address, if the email address is already in your Excel sheet, Google Sheet, you can go in and update that row, right? It's not just adding a new row. You can actually go in and change a row. And that was another breakthrough. So the two breakthroughs, central hub, Airtable, or a Google Sheet. And then remember that, if you have multiple interactions with clients or products, they can then get looked up and then updated. So you always have that real-time data.
I do want to jump in here. I know
Yeah.
that most of our audience are entrepreneurs and business owners, but if we have any assistants watching, this is where I made my entire career happen, was specializing in $100 work. And so there is still, that kind of value in that, people are going to need to outsource writing the procedures and coming up with this whole system. And if you just kind of glazed over when he was explaining how to connect everything to Airtable and what is even Airtable, like that is a specific niche that an assistant can know all about and you can utilize.
And I know just these apps, they're not particularly hard to learn. But if you are a Notion specialist, an Airtable specialist, a Zapier specialist, it's actually quite efficient. Like they command roughly between like $50 to $150 an hour. And there's like a very active market just for that specific skill. All right. in the interest of time, I'm gonna skip exercise 3, but I wanna just plant the flag that if you ever do the same sequence of activities 3 times, find a way to automate it. That could be the onboarding email that you send to a new client, put it in a text expander, or put it in just save a copy of it in a Google Doc. If there's a series of steps that you're constantly explaining to an assistant or a colleague, make it a standard operating procedure. If you're copying and pasting, from one app to another app, create an automation. And that is where you can really extract that, that $100 work and then be done with it and move and keep moving up the chain. I will say now that running a coaching business, a teaching business, that I could not manage all of the students, the payments, the interactions without these automations. It would actually be too expensive to hire someone to do it because it's so much copy and pasting. But more importantly, it would not be robust. There'd be so many places for human error where with the automation, it just it works. You can set up background, quality checks along the way just to make sure all the numbers tie out. So that's your exercise 3. So now $1,000 work, which is, if you're a coach, if you're, if your business is around, exchanging a skill you have for money, then this might be the pinnacle, right? It's I have specialized knowledge. And in fact, if you look at, the top hourly rates of the top partners at law firms, it's, around $1,000 an hour, right? Make $1,000 an hour. You work 40 hours a week. It's a lot of money. And this is the land of specialized knowledge, the engineer, the trainer, the lawyer, the investor that is just damn good at something, has experience, and is able, has agency, can get stuff done. And so you could stop there. But the problem, or not the problem, but the thing to consider is that once the work stops, the income stops. So even though you're running on a gold-plated hamster wheel, in this case, a $1,475 an hour hamster wheel, if you take a year off, it's zero. And so how do you get to that next level? What is that next level? And this is the classic example of do you want to be the lawyer that bills $1,000 an hour? Or do you want to be the owner of the law firm where the lawyers bill $1,000 an hour, right? That is the ultimate leverage of, but again, that's capital versus labor. But we'll talk about other forms of that leverage. So that gets us to that next category of $10,000 work. And I just wanted to take one quick example on distribution because it's a really neat example from Naval Ravikant. And I'll share the thread. There's a bunch of follow-up links that I'll share with you all. But there was a story of a gentleman, I think it's a man, who had an idea, wrote a white paper, and wrote a little bit of code about this white paper, and then shared it freely on the internet. And as this idea traveled, people got more and more invested in it, started adding to it, started building upon it, started making it something bigger than it was, ultimately increasing the stake of the person, this one, first person who created this. And so what is this magical distribution story? It's a story of Bitcoin, right? It's just, all it was a research paper. And a research paper with some code attached to it. It traveled freely across the internet. People bought into it. Every time it traveled, the owner lost a little bit of shares, but the overall pie increased. And so no one knows who the founder of Bitcoin is. He or she is still anonymous. But reportedly, if you just back into how much Bitcoin he owns, it's about $10 billion. So that is the beauty of the internet, which is, I could sell my online course. My course does involve like some manual part to it. But if for me to teach 100 people or 1,000 people that course, it's very little marginal extra cost. And so where you can find that leverage and apply it to your business, that's where the thing keeps working and you can stop working. And so what are some ways in which you can do this, right? We talked about distribution, right? We are all, I presume many of you are internet entrepreneurs or have some component of the internet in your business. There's the cost of replication. If you make an ebook, if you make a great video, if you make a series of digital products, it's the marginal cost to make the next one is zero. So there's infinite leverage in your product. Now you have to go out and be able to sell it more. But we are quite fortunate that we live in this world where the distribution can be close to zero, and that's where you get all these crazy content creators, and Joe Rogan can sell for $270 million. PewDiePie, 50 million bucks. Gamers, all that. But again, we're not just talking about creators. Let's not forget leveraging talent, leveraging labor, right? When you train great employees, you can step away, right? You can incentivize them the right way. They can buy into your vision. I think about vision too, especially if you're building a company, right? If you can get people behind your vision, then what's one of the hardest things in building a full-blown company? Recruiting, right? Setting a vision attracts the best talent to your company and gets them to stay there. Brand awareness, right? You walk around and you you recognize the colors of a Gucci, that red and two colors, the red and green of Gucci, or the print of Burberry or of Louis Vuitton, right? Think about the swoosh of Nike. I know I'm using a lot of fashion examples right here, but even something like RadReads, it carries a brand where I can launch a new product and people will buy the product purely on the basis of the brand. It's taken 6 years to build that brand, and it's an ongoing product. It's an ongoing exercise, but it's something that, right? It keeps working. The thing keeps working when I'm surfing, and then leveraging access, and then leveraging technology. So these are different ways to think about this $10,000 work. So this gets us to our last exercise for today. And I want you to think about, I'll go back to that list, but I want you to think about your business and the activities that you could do so that the thing keeps working while you're not working. And I want you to come up with, one or two of those activities, but be more specific. Be like, I could sit and work on this for 25 minutes every day. Like I can sit and work on RadReads frameworks for 25 minutes every day. There's no dopamine. It's confusing. I don't know if I'm doing it right. There's a huge fear of failure, but I can show up for 25 minutes every day and work on that. And so I want you to come up with a handful of those things that you can do, because your homework from here on is to tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up and you're going to spend 25 minutes on that thing. And then on Monday, you're going to wake up and you're going to spend 25 minutes on that thing again, or maybe you had a few of them, you'll bounce around them. So I'll go back to the other list. I want you to think about how that might apply to your business and start coming up with how you're going to start doing this tomorrow. Give you 90 seconds for this one. Set a 90-second timer. Oops.
Yeah, Ali, the question was, how can you incorporate 25 minutes of $10,000 work in your day? So looking at this list here, what is something that you can do to leverage what you're doing?
All right, we are going to wrap in about 15 seconds. So if anyone wants to drop into the chat what they came up with. And I like the pairing, because it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to leverage talent. But to me, that was a big one. And I spent a lot of time on this, was I need to hire a VA. And so leveraging talent to me is like, what are the concrete steps I need to hire a VA? Not just like, oh, it'd be nice to have a VA. And so I want you to think about these as more actionable, not necessarily steps. Some of these can be practices, right? Like committing, like spending time thinking about your brand, what you want your brand to stand for, doing brand exercises, reading a book about branding. So who wants to volunteer?
We do have somebody from the chat who said creating their Udemy course.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really, really, really good one. I mean, Udemy that's leveraging distribution. It's the ultimate scale. You could have, in theory, 100 million people as clients. And I would, to whoever said that, I would say, now take that and break it down. Like, what's the first step to that? Naming it, maybe. What's the second step? Coming up with the outline. What's the third step? Filming the first video. What's the fourth step? That's a great answer. Anyone else?
I put strategizing what I can delegate to my assistants in February. In the future.
That's good, right? Leveraging talent, leveraging labor.
What do you got, Rose?
Yeah, I think I'm in the vision and brand space, which is I don't know. It's like I feel like I've done all of those things, and yet I still make $5. So you know what I mean? It's such like a weird place to be in right now, and I just I keep rolling around. I'm like, something's missing. So like, what's missing? Like, I don't know what's missing. So maybe it is like the brand and the vision, and just getting really clear on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a good one. And again, remember that I say $10,000 work is a little bit like modern art, right? Hard to define, but you know it when you see it. And the thing is that by definition, it's not like, it's hard to like read a textbook and be like it's a unique combination of like your business, your skills, what you're passionate about, the market environment, what makes your heart sing. It's a lot of different things. But I want to leave you with two thoughts on that. One is that's why you need to have, like, if you do only $10,000 work, then you're just a dreamer, right? and if you do only $10 work, you're like the world's best execution machine, right? And so everyone needs to find that right balance amongst the 4 quadrants, which, by the way, I would suspect that most of us will spend the majority of the time in the $1,000 bucket because it's the thing that we're skilled at and it's the thing that people pay us for. So the other stuff is almost like, jet fuel, like slowly building the rocket ship, but recognizing that the results are going to be blurry, capping. That's why I said 25 minutes. Like maybe there's like a certain like workshop you can do, or a course that you can take, or a consultant that you can hire, or a book that you can read, or a framework you can go through, and spend that time doing it. Take stock. Was this effective? Was this a good use of my time? The answer might be, I don't know, but at least you protected yourself where you didn't do it. You didn't spend hours, each day doing it. Because the flip side is you don't do any of that and you just go on with your $1,000 work. Guaranteed you're going to stay on that path. All right. Let me flip through. Got a few more. So how do we implement this thing? I would say that first, find your force multipliers, right? So think about what's an activity that's 100 times more valuable than the one I'm doing, than checking my email, right? You get into 100, creating playbooks, creating a little bit of scale automation, get into $1,000 work, which is, let's not forget that you could also become more skilled at what you do to, make the 1,000 become 2,000 or 5,000. And then the 10,000 that we talked about, the modern art. We didn't talk a lot about this adjacent skill, but this is aimed a little bit more towards corporate audiences where the work is a little bit more siloed. But, I always talk about repositioning a career, like teaching a coal miner how to code, which is hogwash. But when you are siloed in a specific world, no, you shouldn't learn how to code necessarily, but there's a whole field of adjacent skills that can make your core skill better. So example I love is salespeople, the more like smile and dial type. What if they became good writers, right? They could write really persuasive emails or marketing presentations or sales copy. Marketing and psychology, a very, very obvious one that's very near and dear to my heart. Digital marketers and product design, right? Those tend to be very different functions, but they're collapsing these days. So again, part of your path, this is not, and the metaphor breaks down a little bit here, but you can also, the path towards $10,000 work is making your $1,000 work more valuable. Right? It's not as leverageable because it's still your time, but by widening your skill set, and again, off of the base that you have, it really can provide a huge boost to your business and your offer.
Okay, I'd love to interject one of the examples in our group for adjacent skills. We have a photographer who is learning how to utilize art to enhance her photography skill. Awesome.
Yeah. And that there's just so much in the lens of digital that, digital to analog, that is just such a powerful way to just level up a set of skills and a business accordingly. Thanks for adding that, Marian. Third step, manage your energy versus your time. So this is a sample of my day, my energy as it relates to my time. I'm a morning person and I have young kids. So if it's not done by noon, it's not happening. So you can think about that with the pairing of your work. I have to do 10K work before noon, or else it's not going to happen. 10K work is hard. Remember, deep work, can't do it hungover. So I need to do that early. And then as you get down, towards that red part of the curve, then you start getting inbox. I spend from 4 to 5 or 4 to 4:30 chopping wood on email, right? That's, people who email with me frequently, like Marion, probably see that there's a cadence to you're never going to get an email from me before 4 o'clock unless it's time sensitive. And then you get a lot of them from me after 4 o'clock. Sometimes I play with Superhuman and change the times just to keep people on their toes. But the other thing to do is, I call it $10 Thursdays, but a great thing to do, like we need to do $10 work. The best thing to do is give yourself permission to do it, right? And do it in one big chunk. I love doing $10 work on airplanes, because like the Wi-Fi is crap. I'm uncomfortable. I mean, this is when we used to travel, but then like you can clear like 80% of your to-do list on a cross-country flight, just bills and like all the BS. And so again, you can structure that into your day, right? Again, and if you're a night person, you just can invert the graph. And then like Peter Drucker says, what gets measured gets managed. I think the most simple act of tagging your tasks in one of those 4 buckets, whatever task manager you use, they all have labels at this point, task labels. And so just seeing like, oh yeah, I'm like even having to think like, oh, and sending an email can be $10,000 work. I sent an email to an editor at a very large publication. It took me 20 minutes to write. That's $10,000 work. Again, to Rose's point earlier, there's a good chance that my email ends up in the trash bin. And so it would have been wasted $10,000 work, but that's $10,000 work. Writing the right email can be $10,000 work, because it's actually not about the email, right? It's about the offer, it's about the person, it's about the relationship, it's about the distribution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I would love for you to all start tracking, assign a value to every task in your task manager, and that will just make you think about it a little bit more deeply. So lastly, I want to wrap with a story of a gardener. And so you have the gardener that just, trims, cleans the garden. I'm not a gardener, but takes out the roots and waters and adds fertilizer. That's $10 work. Then they hire someone else to do it. So they have people come and take care of the garden. Then they become a specialist at a certain part of the garden, like horticulture. So they become an expert on a certain type of grape or a certain type of plant. And so now they've got high skill that can command a premium. And then you get into the $10,000 work, where really your imagination runs wild. You could use your gardening experience to think about sustainability, to think about hydroponics and the future of gardening. You could use your gardening experience to avoid food deserts, to solve the food desert problem in the United States. You can use your experience for sustainability and alternative sources of energy, or you could expose young kids to the beauty of community garden. And again, see how that, right? You start in the lower left quadrant as someone who just likes gardening, who is a gardener, and then you end up building a community gardens for kids who don't have access to them. That's all in your reach. That's your businesses can all take that trajectory. Your personal lives can all take that trajectory. And I think at some point you just throw out the whole framework, right? Because, at the end of the day, the one thing about that framework is it's very outcome oriented, and it forgets like why you do it, right? It forgets the beauty of the garden or the beauty of one's craft. And so I just want you to remember that everything I said is very useful, but it's about more than just a garden or a framework. It's about good work done well for the right reason. It's about the delight in enabling a living thing to thrive, a gift that you can offer to the world for free, a connection with beauty and wonder, and most importantly, it's a vessel for each of your love. So with that, I thank you. I will take any questions. I think most of you are signed up already, so just in case, and I will stop sharing.
You know, one of the practical things that I learned in your boot camp, Kay, when you were talking about 10K work, what that actually like looks like on a day-to-day basis, you were saying that oftentimes it's just you and your journal, just mapping out those frameworks or coming up with those big things. And in season 1 of Masterful Manifestors, we all gave everyone these beautiful blue journals. So guys, it's right here. Just go ahead and grab that journal and you can dive into your 10K work, get your 25 minutes in.
And it's the world's best kept or worst kept secret, depending on whose perspective. I said this to someone the other day. If you just spend 25 minutes a day reflecting on something that's important to you, whether it's in your own life, a relationship, a business, a skill, and you do that 25 minutes for every day, anything that you want, you will be able, no pun intended, to manifest whatever you want into the world with that level of, with that commitment to a practice. Whether it's becoming a skilled copywriter, whether it's building a community gardens, or being, you know, the best friend, parent, partner to the important people in your life. So, so at the end of the day, you know, like I said, tear the framework down, and if you just commit to 25 minutes of the most important thing that you should be doing, guaranteed to find success, however, in whatever form or shape that may look for you.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any questions for Kay? I love that. 7 daily rituals in the journal. So rad. Oh yeah, I was telling people yesterday that when we were emailing, you were like, this is going to be so dope. And I was like, when I was saying that, I was like, that's never come out of my mouth before.
I love
That's
it.
the vibe that you carry.
I gotta say, you know why the company is called RadReads? Is because I worked with all these kind of crusty older men, and I was like, I want them to have to say the word rad, because rad means to be like effortlessly cool. And so just like my goal was to these like old, and it's funny because they all like intonated different. They're like rad, you know, RadReads. Like it's like they're like so uncomfortable saying it. But at the same time, they have to say it because, you know, they have to refer to me somehow.
That's hilarious.
I'm super pumped. I'm very excited. I love the 25-minute concept. That just really opened my eyes even more. So I'm pumped and ready to go. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. And really, I'll share these slides with you. Take that list and find that list. Those skills are, you know, that list of leverage, like brand, marketing, audience development. Again, you don't want to do it all day, every day, but if you, and it's almost not doing the thing, it's devising the strategy for the thing, right? Like, so for me, writing a really good email is $100 work, but coming up with a narrative arc that, you know, and Marion, who's been a long time subscriber, is starting to see that narrative arc. Developing that arc is the 10K work. So the emails, and usually, you know, $110 is the execution part, and the strategy and vision part is the 1,000 and the 10K. And so find that right balance between the two. And I promise you, just by tagging each task, you're gonna be like, nope, $10, not happening today, not until I do my 25 minutes of 10K. It really becomes like really it becomes a hard, you're like, why on earth would I do $10 work when I haven't done $10,000 work today? It actually makes no sense. And you kind of like checkmate yourself. Sorry, I watched a little too much Queen's Gambit. But you kind of like pigeonhole yourself where you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to check my email, but I didn't spend a single minute on my framework today. How curious. Remember curiosity and compassion. How peculiar. I wonder why. And then you'll kind of get into the resistance side of things, or but again, it's a muscle to train, and I could just tell by your questions and your enthusiasm that you all have the mental capacity and the drive to do it, and now it's just a matter of showing up.
Yeah, going about your day if you haven't written your affirmations or goals down, meditating, just thinking about certain people in our group. But yeah, when I learned this in the boot camp, and I started this practice of putting the value on the task. It has worked so many wonders. Last month, I got 2 new assistants, and now every time I hit the $10 task, I'm like, oh, which person's going to do this? Because it's not me anymore. And it's just such a cool practice. Now, I started that before I even had assistants. And so I then started cultivating, okay, what are the skills that I need to look for so that I can leverage the talent that I hire? Rachel, you have a question?
I do. So, when we got to the section on the $10,000 work, I was met with a little bit of resistance there. And I was trying to debate whether that was me coming up against limiting beliefs, or if it's that I just need to scale that to where I am in my business. I mean, I have a relatively new business. And I guess I want to, I don't know if I have a question here, but just that what do I do with that, pause that I came to?
No, it's a good question. And it's the reason why it's so easy to just, it's like getting a good night's sleep. You're like, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. Like there's no consequence to a few ways that you could address that you could look at this is you could try a visualization or future casting exercise where you're like, okay, if everything goes as planned and I wake up in 5 years and my business is thriving, what needed to happen to get there? And there's probably some things that are, maybe you work by yourself and in 5 years you have, 25 employees. So, maybe hiring your first employee is not something that is in the realm of possibility for 2-3 years. So, you could think about that. You could table that, or maybe think about that in your journaling, like, once a month or something, like what might my future team look like? But in the process, it'd be like, well, I don't have access to a team. What could I automate? What could I outsource? So you could approach it that way through future casting. You could also approach it through like obstacles, right? What are the common obstacles that I run into? Right. And I'm not a confident writer. I'm too slow of a writer, or I can't close a sale, or I can't write a good sales page, or my credentials are lacking when someone wants to hire me for this specific thing.
My audience is too small.
My audience is too small. But again, like the post is the $10 or the $100 work. The strategy for audience building is the $10,000, right? And it's easy to conflate them, right? And so for audience building, the strategy might actually not be to write more emails and create more landing pages. It might be to guest blog, right? Or to go on webinars, right? That might be part of your strategy. So part of your 10K work would be devise a strategy for audience development. And then you might come up with multiple prongs within that. Each one of those could be $10,000 work. And as you start to flush them out, you start executing them on the 10, 100,000 side. Also, a lot of times I would be cautious to not spend too much time in it. But a lot of times $10,000 work is learning a new skill. Like learning a new skill that makes you more valuable to your company. And again, it could be a certification, or in my case, it was like learning how to like copywriting. I mean, that's been total game changer. And now the one that I'm really working on is like branding and frameworks. Because I have, after 6 years, I have all the ideas. They're just like a hodgepodge collection, across like 250 blog posts, right? There's nothing that can bring it all together. Once I figure that out, and it's hard. I'm not trained in that. Once I bring that together, the ship is, this rocket ship's leveling up, but it's going to take a couple of years. And I have to sit in the morning and be like, okay, 10K framework, like what are the main objections? Like, how does this work in this industry? How does it work for entrepreneurs? Like to some extent, like this is like market research for me, where I'm like, okay, how does this land? Like what lands, what doesn't land? What are the questions people are asking? My $10,000 work will be then going to, sending Marion an email and being like, what do you think worked the best? What do you think didn't fell flat? And then building off of that.
I can never tell, Melanie, if you're reaching for the unmute button or not.
Well, I'll jump in with my idea.
Okay.
What really kind of jumped out to me, especially for newer businesses, it's something I'm drawn to is the networking. Excuse me. And I think that kind of goes, I kind of get a feel with the strategy there. And maybe a lot of the network I do now may not be as strategic, but I'm developing like a feel for it and which way to follow, kind of the intuition of what to follow and where to plant those seeds and that kind of thing. But and some of that $10,000 work may not, come to fruition real soon, but
Yeah.
later down the line things pop up. So that seems to be.
Absolutely. And I think networking is a really powerful one, but you got to be very careful with it because it's a huge, when done without intention or done like on the basis of FOMO, it is a huge time suck. And so again, and I'm always careful when we talk about networking because I don't even really like the word and the concept. Like to me, it's building genuine relationships. But those take time too. So I think that absolutely genuine, and that it's hard because you don't know, in Rachel's example, in 5 years, she might not know what the most important relationships she needed to have are today, right? It took me a long time to realize that one of the most powerful relationships I can have is with journalists, because they'll feature me. I'll get the SEO benefit. Like I could write the best blog post in the world, but if I get a little quote in the Wall Street Journal, it's game changer. But very, very few people, and I'm not, including me, can get a quote in the Wall Street Journal. So you run the risk of spending a lot of time for a thing that doesn't happen. But again, then you can open that up, right? There's press, there's the Wall Street Journal, and there's Joe Schmo's blog, and there's a huge continuum in between. And so your strategy might be, and again, this all falls in the construct of the $10,000. It's like, okay, maybe I do one Wall Street Journal type pitch a month. And I do 5 Joe Schmo blogs a month and, 2 of whatever is in the middle, right? Medium.com or something, right? And if you do that, then you've kind of created a portfolio of activities where you have your high leverage bet that has a good chance of fizzling out, but you didn't bet the ship on it. And you have your more execution, right? Just like pitching Joe Schmo's blog doesn't require that much insight. So you start to move up the food chain there. And again, it's all about finding that right balance of $10, high level, high leverage, but execution thing that you're really good at that makes you a lot of money, and just kind of figuring out where where you kind of your ideal mix, and your ideal mix changes, right? Like you become Jeff Bezos, and like all Jeff Bezos probably does is talk to lobbyists all day, right? And like decide what companies he's going to buy. That's probably like his only job, right? But like before, he was actually writing code. So over that journey, it's going to change. I had no business reaching out to journalists when I had written 5 blog posts. But again, if I had done some 10K work, I probably would have been thinking about it then, right? There's probably a lot of things I missed by not thinking about it, right? And that's why the journaling exercise matters, right? It kind of like expands your vision, like your field of vision, that it reduces your blind spots, right? Because you're like, I know that I want high value press. I know I'm not in the position to do it, but because you know it, you can't unsee that. And so you subconsciously, you're still like just observing like what's happening. Like, oh, my peer got featured in this publication. Like, I wonder how, they got there. Maybe you can even ask them.
Yeah. All right. Well, any last questions, final thoughts from Rose? I just
Where's
love
the
listening
Christmas
to you,
tree?
Rose.
Thanks. Yeah, man, that was such an amazing run through. And I just really appreciated that you gave me permission to do all the things, not all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I need to hear that as a person starting a business and feeling super overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
That, just kind of like, yes. And okay, now simplify, organize, do the thing, take a break.
And now once you label your tasks as 10, soon, you're in your next, in your transition from like Grasshopper to Yoda, you will take a pen and you'll be like, that $10 thing, I'm not delaying it. I'm not doing it. Like you just exit out. Like, I'm not doing it. And you take some confidence. And I'll tell you, like today I was doing like a bunch of type form surveys, and it's like, like 35 people will RSVP to them. And like, then I got to like review them. Like, it's like one of these things, like, 6 years later, I'm still like, okay, you just got to like go, like, it's not worth it, or outsource it or don't do it, but don't. And so like and I was like this close after I did, I'm like, okay, no more. I'm not doing this again. I just crossed it off. And again, maybe I'll hire someone, I'll outsource it, but maybe it just was $10, like irrespective of, right? Even if you give someone a $10 task to do, like if you're paying them more than $10 to do it, it's a bad investment. And that was something I learned the hard way when I hired a VA. It was like I had all these harebrained ideas. I was like, oh, someone else could do this and this and this. And then I was like, well, A, I still got to pay them to do it. B, I still have to explain to them how to do it. C, I got to like look at the results once they do it. And then I'm like, I didn't want this thing in the first place.
I've actually hired someone to just listen to me once a week to like spout out random stuff that really is nothing. Totally worth $20.
Awesome.
I love that. Oh, thank you so much, Khe, for sharing your time. I know we went over time on this class, but you dropped so many gold nuggets on us. I mean, just you crammed it all in. And guys, if you want more nuggets like this, like get on his email list. It's radreads.co. It's well worth it. It's succinct. He puts a lot of thought behind everything that he shares. They truly are rad reads. And yeah, follow him. He'll share his blog articles as well, and they're just so well written and well thought out. So thank you so much, Khe, for coming in here and sharing your wisdom with us.
Awesome. Thank you all. You'll get my email, all that, Twitter from Marianne. Shoot me an email. I say I respond to everyone's emails. It might take me a little while, but I do, especially like an intimate group like this. And so,
Well,
yeah.
just say you're with Marion. He'll respond.
Yeah, exactly. I recognize all the names. So, but yes, excited to have you all in the Rad orbit. There's lots of cool stuff coming on. Marion took my Notion course, Supercharge Your Productivity, which is coming up in January again. By the way, Marion, it's like I totally redid the curriculum, and so it's got,
Oh boy.
it's like all these concepts are being pulled in, but then you have like a canvas to actually like execute it, like
Oh man,
do
I
it,
can't wait.
like track it. So that's going to be badass. And yeah, and then I try to do like 2 free webinars a month. I just love interacting with community members, and it's a good, again, it's like, that's kind of like $1,000 work for me, because I'm kind of testing new ideas. They can be a little more rough. I don't have to worry about all the AV and all that. But if something lands, then I like move it up and turn into a product, turn into a post. There's a method to this madness somewhere.
Oh, awesome. Absolutely. Again, thank you so much. One last thing before we close out the call, I do want to mention that we have our manifesting meditation retreat next Saturday. Please sign up. All of our Masterful Manifestors, you're welcome. You're already in, you're good to go. But everyone else, you are invited. We are going to do a silent meditation, a guided meditation. We're going to really hone in on manifesting, and we'll be doing journaling. Oh, I just realized we're going to be doing journaling prompts. So we're going to have a solid journaling session. So this is truly a day for self-care. It's a 2-hour event, and we will end it all with a sharing circle so that you can share all your insights from the event. It's going to be really amazing. So check that out at masterfulmanifestors.com. We would love to have you there. Thank you again, Khe, for being here. And yeah, go check them out, radreads.co. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a good day. Good evening.